and good evening. Welcome to the Worldview Washington Report for April 9th, 2025. April 9th, 2025. We're here each and every night talking about what has been going on in our nation's capital. And woo-wee, there's plenty to talk about tonight, is there not? President Trump makes the big announcement today to do what? Stop the terrorists, put them on pause for 90 days. But China, you're going to get 125% tariffs. We'll do with that more tonight on Brandon House Live. But let's talk about that and more with our co-host. Jim, welcome back. Thanks for being with us, Jim Pfaff.
How you doing? Good to be with you.
You too. So what do you make, Jim, of the pause and the rocket ship stock market today?
Well, people were just waiting for some break in it and obviously got back in. You're going to have some people who are fulfilling some of their shorts, right? Because they were looking at things getting worse. And so they're kind of settling all that up because the news changed so quickly. But you have people coming back into the market who were a little bit concerned for whatever reason. You got institutional investors related. You got individual investors as well. And, you know, these sorts of things bring in some insecurity to people about what the future might hold. But I think that at the end of the day, this is actually a very good strategy by Donald Trump. And I get a lot of criticism, FYI, from people who are saying, oh my gosh, you're just buying into everything Donald Trump says and reflexively. No, I've been talking about this for years. We need bilateral trade agreements. Donald Trump's putting us on the path to possibly getting to that place. And so, you know, there's still more to play out. These are temporary. This is a 90-day pause. It's going to give other countries an opportunity to decide what they want to do, and Donald Trump's going to negotiate with them. But they did box China in a corner in a very real way. And as Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank was talking about, he wants 400% tariffs on China. You know, he does business in China, he said. They steal intellectual property, then they repurpose it and sell it back into our markets. If you have a dispute in the country, then there's no way that you have a judicial system that'll allow you to try to resolve those disputes. It's just a reminder that communist China is not a free market. It has some things where they're able to, and have for some years, make it look like a free market, but it really is not. It's not a safe place to do business. Donald Trump is standing up for what makes America a great place to do business, and I think he's going to be able to pull this off. I mean, every indication shows that to me right now.
Yeah. Well, he actually did put out on social media today, today's a great time to buy DJT, which again, it's his own stock, I guess. But there you go. I mean, people are buying, getting in, and we'll see where that goes. All right. What else were you watching today?
Well, it's hard to look too far past this thing, but you know, we're still in the midst of this effort to pass this reconciliation bill in Congress. Donald Trump, we don't know yet whether he's convinced the conservative, mostly House Freedom Caucus members in the House to go along with the Senate plan, which only cuts, as I discussed last night, $4 billion over 10 years. And yet the House plan had been about $1.5 trillion. Donald Trump's standing with the and continuing to stand with the Senate plan. He is urging House members to come on board with that, but still no word precisely how that's going to work out. There are no public statements from anyone yet saying that they're willing to capitulate and go with the Senate bill, and that's still going to be a big battle that's still going to play out this week.
Logan, you said you had a clip for us? What's that? All right, a funny clip of Trump. Let's go.
The Senate confirmed Governor Huckabee to be your next ambassador to Israel earlier today. That's his commission as ambassador. And then we also have a transmittal letter to the president of Israel requesting that he accept Ambassador Huckabee's credentials.
He's going to be fantastic. He's going to bring home the bacon.
And then
You know, bacon isn't too big in Israel.
it's just the third letter.
I had to clear that up.
Oh, that's pretty good. Good old
You got to
Trump.
love his style. You just have to love his style.
Yes, you do. Here he is, I think, today, welcoming some folks to the... somebody want to let Dolly in? She's, rip the door off the studio. She'll get in. All right, there you go. That's not sure what football team that is. Or what team that is. I don't know if it's football or what it is. Who is that? That is welcomes North Dakota State University. Oh, it is football. 2025 Division I football. There you go. That's what it is. All right. You got in. You're going to tear the door down, weren't you, girl? To get in here to your dad. But you're here. It's all good. No, don't have a panic attack. You're going to make it. So he's had a busy day today, has he not, President Trump? Let's see. What else do we got here? Oh, yeah. This is a good one. Here's an executive order he just signed. Jim, look at this one.
Next up, sir, we have a series of executive orders and a memorandum all relating to deregulation, which has obviously been a major priority of your administration. The first of these is an executive order. The Biden administration launched what you've called a war on showers. They had certain regulations that basically killed the water pressure of showers and other water appliances.
You can say it. Go ahead. What are the appliances?
I mean, it's everything, sir. It's dishwashers, toilets, sinks. But the shower heads are a huge...
There's no water. You don't get water. It's ridiculous.
So with this executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real-deal shower head, they should have the ability to get one.
You buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers where no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. And what you do is you end up washing your hands 5 times longer. It's the same water. And we're going to open it up so that people can live, and we're going to hopefully have Congress approve it so it's memorialized. We're going to try and get all of these things, including straws, little thing like straws. We did straws a month ago, where the paper straws were melting. They were dissolving. They weren't working well. And we went back to the plastic straws. We're going to get Congress to memorialize just about everything we've done here, because most of it's common sense. But the water is horrible. When you go into anytime you see a new faucet, you know it's going to be a long wash of the hands. And so we're changing it. It's a big deal. I did it in the first administration. Biden came in his first week, and he had no idea what he was doing, but somebody told him to do it. In his first week, he put the restrictions on all the bathroom utilities. Even in areas that have so much water, they don't know what to do with it. You see those areas all the time with the flooding. So we're doing that, and we're going to get all of the things that you've seen. I think we set a record. We're up to almost 200 and 500 amendments. Nobody's ever done that many. We're going to get them approved by Congress so they're memorialized. And we look forward to doing that. It's very important. And Congress is going to start working on it as soon as we get the big, beautiful deal done. The big, beautiful deal is important. The biggest tax cuts in the history of our country. That's important. Okay. Okay. Is that okay? Good. Just a tap.
Need a good shower.
All right, there you go. We got to get a good shower for that hair, he said. Can't have drip, drip, drip.
You know, there's a lot of issues around this water thing. So the basic concept, unreasonable concept and false one behind these restrictions on shower heads and other things is the false belief that we have water shortages in the country. Now, if you're east of the Mississippi, there's no such thing as a water shortage, right?
We just had 14 inches at the airport, 12 inches
exactly.
in our town. Just
and we can't keep it all.
5 days. In 5 days.
That's right. We can't keep it all. I saw a picture of the Ohio River going right up to Crosley Field in Cincinnati where the Reds play. You know, that's a huge amount of water, and we can't keep it all on the east side of the country. On the west side of the country, there are honestly issues with water because, you've got a lot of arid places around there. But what's amazing is that we've forgotten, and California, the recent example with the fire shows that California had gone way overboard on this issue, where they've been tearing down dams, and some of the brilliant techniques and ideas that engineers for over 100 years had developed in California, which again has some water issues, but they found ways to preserve water and to utilize it well. And even though you've had massive population growth, most of the water problems in the West, not all, but most, are due to the fact that we've cut down these mitigating things like dams and other things that have allowed both agriculture and individuals to be able to use water. And, there's one last thing. I was in Colorado for many years. There is a 20-state compact that was put together. This is outside of federal control. 20 states voluntarily, this is, I think, in the 1930s, I think is when this began, to help manage water on the Colorado River. The environmentalists have messed up that system so badly, and they've had federal government help to get into it. Americans come up with great ideas on how to deal with these things if we just allow the genius of American technology and American ingenuity to mitigate these things. And so even though the West is a different issue, it's a much more challenging issue when it comes to water. If environmentalism had not gotten in the way, we wouldn't have the types of water problems that we have out West.
Isn't it always the people that offer up the solutions are usually the ones causing the problem? They would just get out of the way. We wouldn't have a problem to have to. But of course, that's their whole deal, right? They manufacture crises and they rush in and they offer their solution, which generally is to clamp down on the free market system and our liberties and our freedoms, which of course is the goal. Let's see. I think we have a clip here of President Trump talking today to some of the folks out in front of the White House. Let's see what he says here.
You got the market seeing your brilliance.
Yeah, that's up almost 7 points. 2,500 points. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's going to be a record.
It's amazing. Yeah. You make an announcement the next day.
Yeah, he says it's amazing. Country's going to be okay. He says country's going to be okay. Is the country going to be okay, Jim?
I think so. Listen, the American people have a strong history of being able to deal with the problems that come their way. But basic principles of economics teach us that human beings come up with solutions that are in their best interests, and they figure this out. By the way, economics, the definition of economics is not how people spend money. That's the way a lot of people think. What economics is, the study of economics is it's a social science that studies how people make decisions with scarce resources. And every resource that there is in life is scarce at some level. And but the fact is that when you allow people to figure out what's in their interest, they restrain themselves when necessary, they extend themselves where opportunities come their way. We need an economy, and we're far from it, even with all the great things Donald Trump is doing. We need an economy where people are able to reap all the rewards of the good decisions they make, and where they are subject to the consequences of all the bad decisions that they make. And when you do that, you end up on the downside, mitigating circumstances. What we used to do instead of things like massive welfare and safety net programs, we used to leave these things to charitable organizations and just the goodwill of people, whether it was on a religious basis or not. And now we have a system both in the states and the federal government where government has nationalized charity. So those downside mistakes that people make, families could mitigate them. Again, religious organizations and other charitable organizations could do it. We have to have a structure where people are required to make good decisions, because that tends to grow things in the upward trend in the long run. And to mitigate the problems when you have the natural normal downsides. So, but if we can't allow people to reap the rewards of the good decisions that they make, then you don't have the ability to voluntarily deal with the downside issues. Economics, we should leave it to people to figure out what's in their most important interest, and when the collective decisions that they make tend to help economies do well. When government gets involved, when other organizations and a legal system sometimes gets involved, it always messes things up.
Absolutely. Remember Chris Krebs? He was head of CISA and said that 2020 was the fairest election, the freest election ever. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And then when he quit his job, or quit his job, or whatever happened to him.
He was fired by Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then he said later on one of the news shows that China can hack us right down to the local level. I mean,
it's entirely crazy what Chris Krebs was doing. And by the way, it is fundamentally a lie, and he knew it at the time, to say that we have the freest, fairest elections that there ever were. For many factors, one mild one is that we use these computer voting systems, and I'm not trying to bring up the Dominion thing in particular, just to say that why would we do that? Why not have paper ballots that can be validated and verified? But computer voting systems are, as he pointed out all by himself, are subject to hacking and so forth. But more importantly, as free and fair as our elections have been in our history, there's never been an election where there wasn't some, usually very mild, amount of fraud that takes place. There is example after example of local elections where someone rigged the system to take someone out. We know that this happens almost every election cycle from our founding. What we've been really good at is having a voluntary system where people can monitor what's going on, poll watchers in particular. By the way, there was just an incident in this Washington election in Milwaukee County. Wisconsin election, for Supreme Court justice in Milwaukee County. Once again, we had a situation just a couple weeks ago where there was some vote counting taking place, and people who should have been able to monitor the elections were shut out. Windows were covered. We saw this in 2020 in Detroit. You'll remember all the Republicans were pushed out of the counting area, and they put up barriers on the windows so you couldn't see, put up paper on the windows so you couldn't see what was going on. They shut people out. Now, listen, we may or may not be able to prove that there's fraudulent activity taking place. But what you cannot get rid of is the appearance of impropriety when you don't have transparency. I think the Department of Justice needs to investigate what happened in Milwaukee County in the Wisconsin election recently and see what was going on there. We were really good at elections because the amount of fraud that could take place, the amount of natural error, by the way, that could take place gets mitigated when you have an open system where people on all sides of the political spectrum are able to inspect what everybody's doing. That's the way it was when I used to run elections, when I was a precinct committeeman and a vice ward chairman in Marion County and in Indianapolis in the 1990s. And even though there was tension between Democrats and Republicans, there was still cooperation to make sure that these things went off well. Human nature is such that you must have this sort of transparency and this sort of verification.
Absolutely. Let's go to Chris Krebs, I guess, came up in the Oval Office today with an executive order. Here we go.
Christopher Krebs, the former head of CISA. This is a man who weaponized his position against free speech in the election context, in the context of COVID-19. A presidential memorandum to the one you just signed. You might have, and further instructs your Department of Justice, other aspects of your government, to investigate some of the malign acts that he participated in while he was still head of CISA.
This is another one. I don't know that I met him. I'm sure I met him, but I didn't know him. And he came out right after the election, which was a rigged election, a badly rigged election. We did phenomenally in that election. Look what happened to our country because of it. Open borders, millions of people coming into our country. Russia and Ukraine, that would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened. Afghanistan, the way that they withdrew with 13 dead, but so many killed, actually. I mean, so many killed outside of the 13 soldiers, hundreds of people killed. And maybe, I don't know, never mentioned, but I mentioned it, 42 or 43 people so badly injured, the legs, the arms, blown off, the face. And this is all because of an incompetent group of people that preceded us, and that would have never happened. And this guy Krebs was saying, oh, the election was great, it was great. Well, it's been proven that it was not only not great. When you look at all these lawyers and law firms that are signing, giving us hundreds of millions of dollars, it was proven by so many different ways in so many different forms, from the legislatures not approving to the that worked from all of the different scamming operations. It was a very corrupt election. They used COVID to cheat. And we're going to find out about this guy too, because this guy's a wise guy. He said, we've been proved this is the most secure election in the history of our country. No, this was a disaster. And frankly, we should go to paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID, and one other thing, you should get a little certificate that says you're a citizen of our country. You get a citizen piece of paper that says you're a citizen before you can vote. But you want voter ID and you want paper ballots, and you really want same-day voting. If you don't have same-day voting, they decide to change the air conditioner. Oh, we're fixing the air conditioner. Let's move all these boxes. We'll bring them back in a few days. And then they don't bring back those boxes. We got to have safe elections. We have to have borders. Ideally, we have to have a free press, which we don't have. We don't have a free press. We have a very dishonest press. This is an honor. We're going to find out whether or not he was right. This was a disgraceful election, and this guy sat back saying, well, I'm a member, or like he's a Republican or something, and almost right from the beginning. And he's tried to make the case that this election was a safe election. I think he said, this is the safest election we've ever had. And yet, every day you read in the papers about more and more fraud that's discovered. He's the fraud. He's a disgrace. So we'll find out whether or not it was a safe election. And if it wasn't, he's got a big price to pay. And he's a bad guy. Here's another one. I have no idea who he is. Krebs. I have no idea who he is. I'm sure he was in the room at some point, just like you're all in the room, but I have no idea who he was. So thank you very much. Those last two are very important, I think.
Okay, now he just said we're going to find out, and if so, he's got a big problem. I guess, Jim, somebody in this administration somewhere must be really delving into 2020, and they must be planning on doing something. I mean, that's what I picked up there. What do you say?
Yeah, they absolutely should, and they should be looking at the 2022 elections as well. Listen, also after Krebs left, CISA was used as part of the weaponization process to shut down speech online and in other places as well, too. It's a horrible organization. Donald Trump signed the legislation to create it, and that was a mistake, ultimately, it turned out being. But as for the 2020 elections, there is probably some degree of fraud. I don't know how much. I don't push the Dominion voting stole the election thing, but there was plenty more that took place. Listen, the reason we always had same-day elections in this country was largely because of custody issues. Mm-hmm. All the custody happens in front of all the poll watchers live while it's taking place when you have same-day elections. The final tallies and verifications happen that evening, and everything is known. When you leave ballots in the custody of people over long periods of time, and I'm sure that many election officials, Democrat and Republican, act in an honorable way, but in places where it can matter, that's where you're going to have the temptation towards corruption. And when you leave these ballots in someone's custody, often in recent years, a Democrat election official who hates Donald Trump with everything in them. And that visceral hatred really is what can spur on a lot of corruption. The only way to make our elections safe and secure is same-day elections with paper ballots. And by the way, one other thing that happened back in 2020, you had states that literally violated the Constitution. Whether it ended up in fraud or not, it violated the Constitution because Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Nevada for sure, and I also believe possibly Arizona, they changed their election law outside of the process. There is a requirement that the state legislature determines how electors are chosen. There is no authorization anywhere else. And those states, in the case of Georgia, under a consent decree with Stacey Abrams, Brad Raffensperger went to Dominion voting machines and changed also the actual process and how many days of elections. Pennsylvania did the same thing by an order of the state Supreme Court. Outside of the legislative requirements, they did this in the case of Pennsylvania, under emergency circumstances with COVID. It's emergencies that cause the problems, and so that right there is another issue. But I'm totally endorse going to same-day election with paper ballots. I think you can use scanning machines to count ballots, but you have to have paper scanned in them so that you can go back and validate the end result. And again, same-day gives us an opportunity for proper oversight and transparency, as well as removing the corruption of custody issues and many other issues. Transparency is everything. Lastly, we need these election officials to never say, no, you can't come inspect this. It's too expensive, and you're meddling anyway. Well, sorry, we need to be able to know that our elections are going well. If we spend anything in terms of money, we ought to be spending it on our elections and making sure that they're correct and that the American people actually have their say.
Yeah, well said. Jim, what do you make of the race now? We've got Ken Paxton, who I've had the chance to interview a few times in person and then via technology, and we want to get him on the broadcast if we can at some point here. But what do you make of Ken Paxton announcing, the AG of Texas? He's running for the U.S. Senate seat against Senator Cornyn. What do you make of this?
Well, it's always difficult, even in a primary situation, to knock out an incumbent. That's always a challenge. Ken Paxton brings something just a little bit different than normal to the table. You don't typically have someone who has also been elected with pretty sizable majorities on a statewide level. So that means he's got a constituency in a statewide election. That says that he has a very good chance, if he were to get the nomination, to also become a U.S. Senator in a pretty red state. But the challenge is going to be this for him. He has to overcome many people in that state who, and I don't want to re-adjudicate the trial that he had before the State House of Representatives there, but there are people on both sides of that issue, Republicans, who either hate him or were totally supportive of him. Can he bring all that together? Now, in a Republican primary, he very well may be able to do that, because you're going to have some sort of a split vote anyway. So he's got to make the case, again, to some people on the fringes of the negative side of that trial that he successfully worked through, that he has to convince them that that trial really was wrong and bring them back on board. So, there's challenges for him, but John Cornyn is no help to the conservative agenda. He has been part of the problem in Washington, D.C. And that there is a large contingency of voters in that state who are, frankly, for at least 2 elections that he's faced, very frustrated with him and were unsuccessful at finding a way through this. Ken Paxton really has an opportunity to maybe kind of thread that needle and kick him out on the nomination process.
Well, Cornyn's out tonight calling him a con man and a fraud, a known con man and a fraud. Well, we'll see about that. Jim, the Conservative Caucus, find him online. Their big event in Chicago coming up here in April. Thanks, Jim. Take care, folks.